What does his text mean?
So frustrating.
Maybe he's just not that into me.
No, she really likes
I've
me.
always been bad
How
at
can I
flirting.
get her attention?
I'm ready for
I just
marriage.
want somebody to share my life.
Is this
relationship
going
anywhere? Modern Love Made Simple. This is Dates and Mates with Damona Hoffman.
Hello, lovers. Welcome to another exciting episode of Dates and Mates. I'm your host, certified dating coach Damona Hoffman, and I'm here to demystify modern love for you. Over the 6 years that the show has been on the air, we have been helping people to navigate modern love, and one issue keeps coming up as a challenge for all of you. Communication. Yeah. I feel that we are in a communication crisis point right now. It's this overload of information and this undervaluing of the person that's on the other end of the phone or the computer, and it's got to stop. And that's why I've brought in the creme de la creme of experts to enlighten us about communication and connection in relationships. Dr. Jenn Mann. You probably know her as the host and therapist of VH1's long-running hit shows Couples Therapy with Dr. Jenn and Family Therapy with Dr. Jenn. And she's appeared as a guest on hundreds of other shows, including The Today Show, The Early Show, Dr. Oz, Wendy Williams, The Doctors, and so much more. And now she's joining us for the first time on Dates and Mates. Please give big smooches to Dr. Jenn Mann.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on.
Girl, we gotta break this all down because people are stressed about communication, and I think it's a problem that's only getting worse. I know you have a book called The Relationship Fix, Dr. Jenn's 6-step guide to improving communication, connection, and intimacy. So I hope you will share some juicy tips on how we can
I'm here for you and your
rules.
peeps.
All right,
100.
good. And then we have headlines today, including why society may have turned a corner in slut shaming and what your boyfriend's texts really mean. Plus, we have the 7 relationship issues that can make you fall out of love. And then we'll answer your questions, including, is it over if she brings a friend to your first date? And what do you do if you're dating someone with an STD? All that and more on today's Dates and Mates. Producer Leah.
Hey, guys.
You ready to do this?
Yes.
And then let's dish.
D's dating dish.
Dr. Jenn, there were new pictures of Amanda Seyfried all over the internet of her doing some dirty deeds out in the ocean with some guy. Now she's married now, she has a kid. These were ancient history, but someone dredged them out.
And it was someone who she
vault.
was in a relationship with, and this was not something that she wanted posted. This was a private photo, intimate moment with her boyfriend.
This is something private.
And
yes.
and this is something that people do a lot. And you know, I've written columns. I have a column in InStyle magazine, and I've written columns about these kind of pictures. And you know, look, it is horrific to have your trust violated like that. I mean, most likely there were only 2 people who had those photos, her and the guy.
They're out in the ocean.
Who's, you know what, was in the picture. Yeah,
right?
So, you know, when you think about who is the person who posted this, you know, it kind of points to one person.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Yeah.
But here's the good thing, Dr. Jenn. All of Amanda's fans and even just ladies around the world they just shut that vault down, and they were like,
which is
no,
great.
this is private. This shouldn't be out there. Don't share it. And they shamed even the sites that were releasing it. And now it's basically become a non-issue.
Yeah.
How can we do this more? How can we support other women? Because I feel like with social media, you know, we're talking about communication today. With social media, there's still so much slut shaming that's happened. Because it was Amanda Seyfried, everybody's like, oh, it's okay. But if it's like, oh, girl down the street, now we're going to be talking about her boobies hanging out.
And I think that you bring up a great point. And I think that this is really about women accepting women, and also us looking at ourselves and going, there by the grace of God go I. Because I got to tell you, most women I speak to in my private practice, on the radio, wherever I go, have shared some photo, taken some photo that they would not want to get out there. And to me, one photo does not It doesn't speak to your character. It doesn't speak to who you are. We get to make choices as grown women about who we sleep with, what we put in our mouths, what we photograph, like what we do, who we do it with, and how we do it. And I think that first, the first place we have to look at is ourselves and our relationship with sex and shame and how we feel about it. And what have we taken in that society tells us about our sexuality? So to me, that's like home base.
Yes.
That's the first place to start. And then the second place is to look at how do we judge other women?
Yeah.
And why are we doing that? What is it? Because it really says more about us than the other person. What is it about us that we look at that and we judge that? Are we uncomfortable? Are we threatened? Do we feel it's provocative? Do we feel that our partner might look at that and be turned on? Does it make us jealous? Does it make us
we wish it
scared?
was us?
Yeah, absolutely. Are we looking at her tush and going, wow, why doesn't mine look that good? Right. So to me, the issue is much bigger, and it's more about women, self-esteem, sexuality, like you were talking about, slut shaming. Like, what does this mean about us as women, and how do we own our sexuality and not judge other women for theirs?
I do have to ask you, though, we talked about this before. I don't know if you remember in 2014, there was this big release on 4chan of all of these celebrities' naked pictures. There was Emma Watson, Jennifer Lawrence, and actually Amanda was one of the pictures released. So this isn't new for her.
Sure.
They knew how to handle it. But I said at that time on Dates and Mates, I'm really careful about taking nude photos, about sexting.
Totally.
And I said, that iCloud vault is going to open, and I don't know if you want your thong to be in it.
Totally. Yeah. I mean,
what's your rule on that?
Well, first of all, my partner, Eric Schiffer, has a company called reputationmanagementconsultants.com.
There you go.
His phone rings off the hook when that stuff goes down. So I've seen it on the therapy side, and I've seen it on the other side. And it is really scary. I've had clients, I've had friends who have been threatened by former partners, who have been bribed, who've been blackmailed, who have had revenge porn release. One season of Family Therapy, I had on two sisters from Teen Mom, Brittany and Brianna, and Brittany had a former partner release a movie. I mean, I wouldn't say a movie. It was a home, like, we're going to record ourselves for our own private, yes, our own private enjoyment, which he released. And look, it is a crime in most states.
Yes.
So it's not just, I think a lot of people release this and think, oh, how funny, how fun. And they don't think of the repercussions. But besides the fact that you are harming someone's reputation, their future, their potential employment, their ability possibly to get into a school that they want to get into, all this sort of stuff. In addition to that, you're also doing something that may be illegal.
Okay, well, that I'm not going to be doing it, but I'm saying also, like, just don't take the photo. Like, do you really need it? Do you really need that video?
Or do a headless horseman, as we call it in my biz. You know, don't show your face, show your fabulous bod, and make it something that isn't identifiable.
There you go. Well, as we're talking about texting or sexting, there was an article in, what was it, an article in Elite Daily? Thank you, producer Leah. An article in Elite Daily on how to create healthier texting habits. A lot of people write to me about the frequency of texting.
Yeah.
And what does it mean if he wrote right back to me, or if he didn't write me for the whole day? And they talked to Michelle McSweeney of the podcast Subtext, and they said to not look at quick texting as necessarily a bad thing. I think a lot of people get annoyed by it, but it actually can be a sign that your partner wants to stay connected to you and maybe is willing to take their focus off of other things just to focus on you. Isn't that actually what we want?
Yes. Look, there actually is a study I talk about in my book, The Relation Fix. It says that couples who stay connected throughout the day via text messaging tend to have higher relationship satisfaction. That connection is actually really valuable for the relationship. Mm-hmm. Where I tend to see people getting anxious is the early stages of the relationship. It tends to not be 1 year in, 5 years in. It tends to be that first kind of 6 months when you're establishing, does this person like me? Are we dating? Are we exclusive? What are our habits? Is he really interested? Is she really into me? All that sort of stuff. And that's when people tend to get really anxious. And I think that consistent communication is good, but it doesn't have to be responding in 5 minutes. And I think that we forget sometimes that people have jobs, people have careers. We have to earn money to pay for that cell phone. And we can't pay the bill if we're not working. And that we have to respect that the people we're dating have careers, have work, and are not available around the clock. And I think that we become such an instant gratification society that we have to work on our impulse control. We have to work on not getting our needs met at every moment as quickly as we want. And that's actually okay. And that's growth. And being able to have the maturity to be like, okay, text him a couple hours have gone by. I'm not going to freak out.
Yeah, and also the article references trying something in the early phases called status grounding, where you let them know what your expectation is or where you're going to be. So you say, I'm going to be in class tomorrow. I'm going to be in a work meeting. So the other person isn't waiting, looking for a message, because if they're continuing to message you and you're not responding, that even
their
if
anxiety's growing.
And even if they should know you have other things to do, it does help to sort of communicate that in advance.
I think it's considerate to do once you're in the stage of the relationship where you're having regular communication. That's totally appropriate. Hey, I'll be in class. I won't be able to text you. I'll be busy for, 2 hours. I do think in the initial stages, we want to kind of rule out people who are so impulsive, so needy that if you don't respond immediately, they're freaking out, because that says something about their level of maturity. And if you're someone who's struggling with that, then it's a great opportunity for you to look at that in yourself and go, okay, I need to focus on other things.
Good point. And you also you're a therapist and you work with couples. And so we're talking about the beginning phases of the texting relationship. But I want to move into our next headline is about people who are in long-term relationships out already and the things that make people fall out of love. Texting too much is probably not one of those things. But this article references the research from the Gottman Institute, which I know you also reference in your book. And in it, they talk about the 4 horsemen. And these are the 4 predictors of divorce within the first 5 years of marriage: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. If you're in the early phase of a marriage, the first 5 years, you have to give your partner some feedback, right? What is the line between feedback and criticism?
And look, for your listeners who don't know Gottman, one of the cool things about Gottman, who is really the top researcher when it comes to relationships, is that he can predict divorce with 97% accuracy. The way he came to these 4 horsemen is that he put couples in these, what he calls his love lab, where they're in apartments. They have monitors all over them. There are researchers behind one-way or two-way mirrors who are writing down every word that's said, blood pressure spikes, heart rate, everything like that. So what they found is that these 4 things, like you mentioned, they are the biggest predictors of divorce. I write about them at length in the Relationship Fix because they're so important. When it comes to criticism, there's a difference between a criticism of, you're a terrible partner, or, you're such a slob, that it's when you do things like that, it's not productive. If you're able to say, hey, babe, I noticed that you keep leaving your underwear on the floor. Would you mind putting that away? That's just in my life. It's not a criticism. It's a request. It's said respectfully. That when you start making it about the person, not the behavior, we're right in criticism category.
Okay, I get the difference between that. What about defensiveness? Because let's say your partner is a little bit critical of you, and then you can become defensive. How is that one of the 4 horsemen?
Well, the problem with defensiveness is it shuts down the communication. And to me, one of the key factors in being a great partner, and I practice this at home with Eric. We both work really hard on this, is being able to take in feedback from your partner. You pick this person because you love them, you care about them, you respect them. If they're telling you something that's important or that they've noticed about your behavior, then if you care to grow, if you care to be a good partner, you need to take it in. And it's fair to say, hey, your delivery sucks. You know, like, hey, can you say that to me in a different way? It's really hard for me to take in what you're saying because it feels really harsh. But when you get defensive and you don't hear what the other person says and you're just like, well, I did that. I left my underwear on the floor. Okay, well, you left your bra on the counter. You don't solve the problem. Nothing gets better because you're so busy defending what you're doing that nothing's going to change. And if nothing changes, your relationship doesn't get better, people don't get happier, people are not more connected. It's important to be able to take it in. And I always say, when in doubt, narrate. When in doubt, repeat back what the other person said in your own words. So what you're saying is when I leave my underwear on the floor, you feel really disrespected.
No, that is not at all what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying.
But then you say, okay, well, tell me if I got that
Right.
wrong. I want to know.
Right.
I mean, it's hard. Like, look, we're sitting here and I saw your whole energy shifted when I said that. Okay, I got that wrong. Let me know. It's as if I were your partner, it's hard to kind of argue with that. Like
Right.
if someone's coming back to you going, I want to know.
Right. And I always say, like,
yeah.
take care of your side of the street. Like, just
Yeah.
focus on how you're experiencing it. Don't try and make them feel a certain
Yeah.
thing or think a certain thing. It's just like, this is what's happening for me. Is this happening for you? What do
Yeah.
you think? And beginning that communication.
And also being able to say like, wow, I didn't realize that affected you that way. I didn't realize when I leave my underwear on the floor, for you, that feels like I'm disrespecting you. I thought I was just leaving my underwear on the floor. To me, it was just like, oh, I didn't have time to put it in the hamper. I had no idea that it had this meaning for you.
Yes. And then you best be picking up that underwear.
But
the next time.
but then you have insight about your partner.
Right.
Then you've learned something about them instead of just being defensive and like, well, you know, screw you. Like I can leave my underwear wherever I want. I'm a grown person. Like, you know, getting that defensive.
Absolutely. Well, we'll put the link to this article in the show notes and you can check it out on Romper and read what the other signs are. But I want to hear more about what Dr. Jenn says and what secrets we can learn from her book, The Relationship Fix. And that'll be all coming up right after this because I have a beauty secret to share with you. Have a hot date this weekend or another event that you want to glam it up for? You don't need an appointment at the salon. You don't need to study YouTube videos to get the perfect smoky eye. You can get the experts to come to you with Glamsquad. They have experienced hair, nails, and makeup artists who come right to your door and get you looking like $1,000,000. For events and TV segments and sometimes even just a night out with my husband, I trust Glamsquad to get me glammed up. And their artists are always professional, they're always punctual, and they come totally prepared no matter what skin color or hair type you have. And you know I know a thing or two about that. And now I'm a glam ambassador. And I have a special gift for you. If you're new to Glamsquad, you can get $20 off your first service with my special code, Damona20. You just download the app, see if Glamsquad is available in your area, then select redeem promo code and enter Damona20 to get the service of your choice. It's hair, it's nails, it's makeup. Whatever you want, you can take $20 off. You deserve to feel a little glam today, and you can check the show notes for details to get Glamsquad with the promo code Damona20. We're back with Dr. Jenn Mann. She is the author of the book, The Relationship Fix. And you know, Dr. Jenn, even if you're not on the brink of divorce, it's helpful to work on your relationship and your communication. And so that is just what you aim to do with The Relationship Fix. It's to help people all along the way.
And look, to me, the relationship fix is for two people. One, it's for the person who's not in a relationship, who's going, the next relationship I have, I want to do it better. I want to have a more connected relationship. I want to have a healthier relationship. I want to make better choices. And it's for people who are in a relationship. And like you said, you don't have to be at the brink of divorce. There is no relationship that I have ever seen, no couple I've ever met who doesn't have some area in their relationship where they go, yeah, I could up my game there. Yeah, I could do a little better there. Or, you know, wow, I never thought of that. You know, wow, that would actually be great to implement in my relationship. And that's why I wrote the book. I wrote the book because most people who approach me because they see me on couples therapy or they see me on one of my shows and they say like, what can I do better? I want to have a healthier relationship. I want to have a better relationship. And a lot of the time it's things are good, but I know they could be better.
So let's talk about conflict. Before the break, we were discussing how to handle like a little criticism, but sometimes people have bigger conflicts in their relationship and it makes them just want to run away.
Yeah.
But that could be an opportunity to work on the relationship and to strengthen it. How do you show people how to do this in your practice and in your book?
I'm a big believer that conflict is opportunity for growth. It's the opportunity for us to better understand our partner, for our partner to better understand us, for us to utilize better communication skills that sometimes we struggle with. You know, if you don't flex the muscle, you don't develop it. And also it is the opportunity for both of you to work through conflict in a healthy, effective way and come to a resolution, which ultimately brings you closer. And one of the key things with that is fighting fairly. And that's why I have a whole chapter in my book about fighting fairly, is that typically when conflict escalates and gets out of control, it's because people aren't fighting fairly. They start name calling. They start, you always, you never, like all that kind of stuff. And having effective communication and being able to say what you need, voice what you want, and do it in a respectful way that can be received by your partner, and being able to adjust when it's not being received well, these are key skills to have a healthy relationship. Yeah. Relationships don't get better when we communicate in a way that our partner can't hear.
And there's a certain point where maybe you're just wrong. You're just flat out wrong, and you need to apologize. Is there a right way to apologize?
Yeah, there absolutely is. And in my book, I actually have a whole chapter about how to make amends and how to forgive. And to me, the key are the 4 R's. You know, the first is that you want to have remorse. You want to show the person that you're, and if you are, and hopefully you are, that you're genuinely sorry, that you really recognize how you have hurt this person, and to be able to make a heartfelt apology. The other is, in order for your partner to be able to recover from this, you have to give them the respect and the room to process their feelings. Because a lot of the time what happens is someone goes, I'm sorry, and then they go, okay, you should forgive me, we're done. But being able to sit and hear, wow, that really hurt me, and here's why. That's a key part of it. You know, also being able to make those amends is really key. And part of making amends is actually taking steps to not do it again, having a plan. And people forget that. And, you know, all too often, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten calls on my radio show. Well, my partner cheated on me. He said he's sorry. He cried. I forgave him, and now he's doing it again. I always say, okay, well, what was the plan to prevent this from happening again? What made you think that this would be different? What were the concrete actions he or she said that they were going to take? And typically the answer is nothing. What I look for is, I'm going to therapy now, or I'm getting some kind of counseling. I'm meeting with a religious leader to work through this. I am giving you my Facebook code so that I have total transparency and you will never have something like this again. Or, you know, if alcohol was a problem, I am going to get clean and sober. I'm going to a 12-step. I mean, taking those steps, concrete action is key.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about infidelity. I know you address this in the book, because I do get a lot of questions on Dates and Mates from people that have been cheated on and are working some of these steps that you mentioned, and some not, to try to repair the relationship. And I really wonder, in your practice, if you've seen people be able to rebuild after infidelity. Yeah. And what can people do to prevent infidelity? Because there's also this fear, like, what if my partner cheats on me?
No, I absolutely. I have seen couples recover from horrible infidelities, from betrayals, from trust being harmed in very intense and dramatic ways, which is, again, why I have a whole chapter in the book all about how to make amends and how to forgive and what couples need to do, because this is such a hot button issue. And, you know, the other factor that I didn't get to mention before is taking responsibility. If the person who harmed you doesn't take responsibility, you're not going to be able to forgive. You're not going to be able to trust. You're not going to be able to, you know, that remorse also is key. Knowing that person truly gets on a profound and deep level, I understand how much I have harmed you and I never want to do that again, is so important. So to me, it's not just about an apology. It's not just about one thing, but it's about those 4 things. Right. It's all of those things that actually create a atmosphere where someone can recover, and recovery doesn't happen overnight. And that's really important. It is a process, because the only way you can learn to trust someone again is to see good behavior over time. And I emphasize over time.
Right.
Over time is not 1 week.
We
over
want
time
everything.
is not 1 month.
Instantly.
And,
we want.
and having that ability to be able to process over time, because you're going to, if you have been betrayed like that, things are going to trigger you. And if your partner isn't available to say, okay, we went to a party, I noticed how you looked at that woman. It made me uncomfortable. It really triggered these old feelings. If your partner is going to be like, I thought we were over that already. No, you're not going to recover. It's not going to get better. But if he or she is able to go, you know what? I could totally understand why that was triggering for you. Let's talk about it. I want you to know how important you are to me, how much I love you. I never want to hurt you again. You're going to have a totally different reaction. That's going to move you towards healing. Whereas the defensiveness, and we're back to Gottman and the 4 horsemen, is going to be a disaster. And that's going to escalate it, and that's going to trigger both people, and it's going to go in the wrong direction.
Yeah. I think we've seen it go in the wrong direction so many times.
Completely.
And there are a lot of people, because we see this so much in the media and social media and in our friend groups, we see the infidelity, we get that fear, right? Like, what if that happens to me? So what would you say to those people that are afraid that could happen? And that, even just that fear, that could be really damaging to the relationship.
I think living in fear hurts the relationship, and it hurts you. And on some level, you have to surrender to the fact that if somebody wants to cheat on you, they're going to cheat on you. That you can't control that. Unless you lock them in a box that you're watching all the time. And I don't recommend that. Again, that's illegal.
It's
like the revenge
illegal.
porn. You can end up in prison. Not good.
Don't do it. Don't do it, girl.
Recommended. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It may be tempting. I get it. But don't do it. And really the key is, first of all, developing a connected relationship where there's enough trust and communication where you can say, I'm feeling kind of insecure about this, or I'm feeling concerned, or I'm getting a weird vibe. Like, can we talk about it? That's really important. But at the end of the day, if someone's going to cheat, they're going to cheat. And you also have to look at, why are you with someone that you're that worried about is going to cheat? Is it something that they're doing? Have they betrayed you in some way? Do they have a pattern? Do they have a history? Is this valid? Or is this about your history, in which case, get yourself to therapy. Work on these issues. Like, talk it through. Do the work on yourself. What is it about you and your history? And sometimes it's your childhood. Chapter 4 of my book is all about childhood trauma and how that relates and affects you. And childhood trauma, a lot of the time people think, oh, it's being beaten. Oh, yes, of course. Abuse, it's horrific. But trauma in childhood can be having a depressed parent. It can be having a parent who's checked out, who is a workaholic. It can be having parents who go through a divorce. It can be mental illness. And there are a lot of different, more subtle things that are common in households that impact us and hurt our abilities to have relationships that we have to look at and examine and be able to go, wow, I never thought of it that way. But that actually is really affecting my relationship. And I owe it to myself and my partner to work on that.
And some of those things also can impact your attachment style, right? Like,
yes,
that can make you anxious if you've seen that at a young age. How do you see attachment theory impacting relationships, and how do you coach people in understanding what their own attachment style is, and then their partners, and moving through it with that knowledge?
It's a great question. And, for people who don't know very much about attachment, that the first 3 years of life are when we basically form our foundation for attachments. So as a baby, when we cry, if mommy or daddy are able to come to us and meet our needs, our impression is the world is a safe place. If we have a parent who is unavailable, who's too depressed to respond to our cues, who's drinking, who's using, who's just checked out for whatever reason, our perception typically is the world's not a safe place. Or if we have a parent who brings us close but then is abusive or rejecting or critical or anything like that, it affects how we attach to people. So we tend to anticipate whatever it is that we grew up with. So if we have a parent that was hot and cold, we tend to anticipate our partner's going to be hot and cold. And that can be really scary. So a big part of the work when it comes to relationships and attachment is understanding, what is my attachment style? Am I someone who's really anxious? Am I worried that I'm going to be abandoned all the time? Am I worried I'm going to be cheated on all the time? And then also, or do I have a more secure attachment style, which is great? Or do I have a mixed attachment style? But being able to look at that and understand, what am I bringing into this relationship? Part 2, looking at, how does that affect my choice? Because sometimes
your choice of the partner
we create a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
We go, everybody abandons me. My dad abandoned me. My mom abandoned me. Whoever the early abandon was, they always abandoned me. But then we pick people that reinforce that, because unconsciously it's familiar.
Mm-hmm.
So we pick the person who's a workaholic. We pick the person who has a drug addiction. We pick the person who's a compulsive cheater. We pick the person who recreates the abandonment. And here's the good and the bad news is, our unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between past, present, and future. It's always trying to heal old wounds in current time. So our unconscious mind looks for someone who will recreate that old trauma, because what it does is, kids are egocentric. What that means is,
I know, I have 2 of them.
yes, but it's not about narcissism. It's actually healthy.
Right.
When if a child is abandoned by a parent, if a parent is in a bad mood, a child will always go, I must have done something wrong. That's the first place a child goes. It's the way they're wired. If daddy has abandoned me, if mom has abandoned me, if someone is drinking, if someone has hit me, if someone has neglected me, I must not be lovable. That's the first place kids go, because parents are the first mirrors that reflect back to them. Am I lovable? Am I worthy? So what happens is, kids internalize this sense of, I'm not lovable. Uh-oh. They take it to the relationship. Then what happens is, let's say in that example of someone who was abandoned, their unconscious mind goes, I'm not lovable, but if I can find someone who might abandon me, but I can show them how lovable I am, and they don't abandon me, it will prove mommy and daddy were wrong. I'm really lovable.
Oh, no. That's those fixers. I know you're listening to this.
But what happens?
Those ones that want to fix things, fix people.
And what happens is, you pick that unavailable person, and then you feel rejected, and it triggers that old wound of, you're abandoning me just like daddy.
And it confirms the belief you already have.
But what happens is, you try to work really hard. I'm going to be such a good partner. I'm going to be so sexy. I'm going to give the greatest. Am I allowed? What am I allowed to say around here?
Keep it PG.
Okay.
13.
If I give the greatest sexual act that you've ever had,
I'm Amanda Seyfried on a boat, for example.
Exactly. You're gonna keep coming back to me, and you're gonna love me, and I'm gonna actually feel worthy, and I'm gonna actually feel lovable, and I'm gonna heal this old wound, and everything's gonna be good. And it's a totally unconscious process. But when you know, and you're able to make the unconscious conscious, it helps us make better, healthier choices.
Yeah, that's great advice. I know that's just the tip of the iceberg of what's in your book, The Relationship Fix. And I have so many questions from our listeners. They can go pick up the book, and we'll put the link in the show notes. But I'd like to answer some of the questions that have come in on Instagram and Facebook and email over the last couple weeks. Right, Producer Leah? Yes. All right. Now it's time for Technically Dating.
Technically Dating.
Okay, Dr. Jenn Mann, I have a question from Instagram. This guy asks, if a girl brings a friend to a first date, it's over, right?
To me, it's not about whether it's over or not. It's about her judgment. The question to me is, why would you want to be with someone who has such poor judgment? And look, I understand. I think it's important to be safe when it comes to a date. I get wanting to make sure that you're not with someone who's potentially dangerous. But if you're meeting someone in a public location, you're not getting in their car, and you're bringing a friend, to me that shows it's inconsiderate. It is disrespectful, and it is bad judgment. So to me, whether she thinks it's over or not is irrelevant. For you, it should be over.
There's also this element of the sort of situationship, the hangout date, where I actually wonder if she even knew it was a date. Maybe she didn't even think it was a date.
It's very possible, but it's not the first time I have heard of a woman bring a friend on a date.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But look, I think you bring up a great point, and it is important for him to make sure that he's being clear when he asks a woman on a date. I'm so excited to take you out on this date. I will meet you there at this time. Like, that he's very clear this is a date.
Yeah. Yeah, that clarity. We're talking about the communication crisis
Exactly.
today. So that clarity on your intention, because we're all trying to be so cool. Like, we don't want to let him know that we're really interested. Then we're playing it so cool we're not even getting the second date or the first date. Maybe it's
exactly
just a hangout. Okay, this is another one comes from Instagram. A little more serious. This person says, I'm dating someone with an STD. How screwed am I?
And I love this question. I get this question a lot.
Yeah.
And I love it for a few reasons. First of all, I always say everybody has a herpes. and here's what I mean by that.
Herpes.
Yes, because I get calls on my radio show all the time where people say I have an STD, but it's not just an STD. I remember I got a call from a woman who had lost, it was like 150 pounds and had a lot of surgery and scars all over her body. I had another woman who had breast cancer and had reconstructive surgery. I had another woman who, they're just a lot of issues that people have that when it comes time to be sexually intimate, that they're embarrassed about, that they're ashamed about, that they are afraid to talk about. And to me, an STD it just falls under that category. The STD itself, look, here's the truth. How great that this person told you they have an STD, that they were that honest. That's actually a really good sign about this person, because I've gotten all too many calls and had all too many clients where someone didn't tell them and they weren't honest, and that's how they got an STD, or they found out later and then were living in a lot of anxiety and fear. So to me, first of all, I think it's a great sign that they told you. Secondly, look, 1 in 4 sexually active people has herpes. Something like 80 to 90% of people have HPV. Like, STDs are really common.
Everyone has a herpes.
And what I mean by everybody has a herpes is that everybody has something that they're embarrassed about to talk to their potential new sexual partner about, and that they have shame about. And so to me, this is, it's not that big a deal. To me, that they're communicating, that you can practice safe sex, that you can get tested. And, I once had a couple in my practice where one of the people had herpes. They told the other person. That person was really nervous. I said, you know what? I think you should both go to the doctor and get tested. Like, get fresh tests for each other. It turned out that she was a carrier. She had never had a herpes outbreak, but she was a carrier, so she had the virus.
And she gave it to him. No.
Well, they hadn't had
They both
sex
had
yet.
herpes.
But she may have given it to someone in her past. So, to me, it's so many people have them. And look, nobody wants one. Like, that's not fun. It's not the sexiest thing ever. But knowing that about your partner, being able to practice safe sex, being able to address these issues, to me, the fact that your partner or potential partner has told you is a great sign. And also being able to have communication, whether it is, that or something else. And it's usually when people say that, it's either herpes or HPV, because those are chronic conditions typically. So what it means is good communication. Hey, what do you do when you have an outbreak? Are you taking antiviral medication? Do you have a sense when one is coming, because that's when you're most likely to pass it on? What kind of safe sex practices do we need to practice? All great communication all makes the relationship more solid.
Yeah, and it's all an opportunity for you to educate yourself.
Exactly.
And learn more about your own sexual health. Good tip there, Dr. Jenn. Okay, Instagram also asks, what are some tips on how to make my Instagram profile a dating profile? Should we even be doing that? Should we make an Instagram profile a dating profile?
Look, I think that our Instagram profile should be dating friendly. I don't think it should be solely for the purpose of dating. I think that the risk with something like that is that people tend to post certain types of pictures that they think will seduce. men tend to post a lot of pictures of kind of money related things.
Yeah, here's my car.
Yeah, exactly. Here's my watch. Like, here's my new suit.
In the Bahamas.
Yeah, exactly. And women tend to post a lot of like boobs and tush.
Oh my God, the fish face selfies with the filters from the high angle. Oh my goodness.
Exactly. Well,
we've all done it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, come on.
I just did it right before the show.
Yeah, don't put down the high angle.
Hey guys, here I am. I'm so tiny.
But I think that what you want to make sure is that you know what you're selling. And that sometimes what happens is we try to hook someone in with that superficial stuff. And yeah, sure, that's a nice hook. And if you're beautiful and if you're successful, like that's something that is part of what you bring to the table, and that's great. Share it. Use that. But if you're looking for a relationship, not a hookup, what you want to be putting is what's important to you. What are your values? And I'm not saying like you say, hi, like I'm thinking about, morality today and these are my thoughts, but post things. If you are passionate about travel, post about travel. If you are passionate about attending church, then make sure you include something about church. So someone who is looking at your profile goes, oh, wow, this is a religious person. If I'm not that same religion, this may not be a good match. You want to not just use it to hook people in, but you want to use it to rule people out so you don't waste your time.
Absolutely. And if you are really looking to make it a dating profile, I don't know that I recommend that, but you can integrate Instagram into a lot of dating profiles, like OkCupid or Bumble. But hashtags, I would say, but also be careful because you're going to get a lot of DMs that you don't want, and it's a lot harder to filter them out, I think, on Instagram.
And a lot of DM photos.
We don't want any of
You know what I'm talking about.
Speaking of creepy things, Ed from Instagram says, I think I'm dating someone in another relationship. How can I investigate / not be creepy? Low-key stalking on Instagram.
I think there's nothing wrong with being creepy. If you think that the person you're with actually may be in another full-fledged relationship, I think it's time to do a good Instagram stalking. And, I have a girlfriend who is one of my absolute best friends who's a 20. She used to be a 20, she just got in her 30s. And I used to always say to her, the most important thing about having a 20-something friend is they know how to stalk well. and so really doing a deep dive, looking at tags, looking at people connected. Like if you look at the Instagram, who's in the Instagram, the friends of, doing a deep dive, because look, this is your life. It's one thing to stalk someone that you don't know, and that's creepy and dangerous. But it's another thing if you have a gut feeling or you've seen something that makes you suspicious that someone you are with has a secret life that you don't know about, you have a right to do that research.
Absolutely.
That's self-care. That's not creepy.
I agree with you. But you're also the author of The Relationship Fix, Dr. Jenn's 6-Step Guide to Improving Communication, Connection, and Intimacy. Isn't there also a play in terms of just talking to them and saying, I might be way off base, but I feel really uncomfortable with this, and
yes,
tell me that I'm crazy.
Yes, it's absolutely.
You can phrase that better
to have that conversation. In my clinical experience, the people who have a whole other life that they have hidden will only admit to it maybe 50% of the time, probably not even that much. So it's often helpful with someone like that to be able to say, look, I saw this picture of you in the Bahamas last week with this woman in a bathing suit with your arms around her when you told me that you were in Michigan for a work conference. Can you help me better understand what this is?
That's good. So you're saying like get the receipts and then have the conversation.
I think that if you really believe this to be true, do your research and have your concrete information, because also the kind of person who is the person, like you said, like, oh, you're crazy, like, or please tell me I'm crazy, sometimes will then take down stuff, will alter stuff. And
you've given them reason.
Yeah, I've had clients who have confronted people who have said, like, I have a funny feel, like something feels off, like, or that I have a gut feeling about that friend of yours. No, absolutely not. And then they are able to go on and things haven't been taken down and they show the person that, and it's real. So you got to also, and if this happens to you, what I encourage you to do is there's a tendency to just get angry and bitter and, all women suck, all men suck, this is terrible. It is terrible, but also what you want to start to look at is what is it about my screening process that is lacking? How did I get here? And look, obviously you are never to blame if you pick someone who is a compulsive liar, who is a cheater, who is someone who's very dishonest with you. At the same time, we then have to look at what is my part in this? Was I too quick to jump in? Was I feeling desperate? Did I avoid looking at red flags that came up? Did I put my head in the sand? And that's an important thing to look at so that you don't take this and become a victim. Instead, you're able to go, okay, I got to learn from this. Here's what I'm going to do differently so I don't have to worry about this in the future.
Well, I have learned a lot from you, Dr. Jenn. I hope everyone here listening will get a copy of The Relationship Fix, Dr. Jenn's 6-step guide to improving communication, connection, and intimacy. No matter what phase of the relationship they're in, this is a great resource to help them.
And
so
I would love to give you a copy for your viewers and listeners so you can do a giveaway if you like.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll definitely do that.
Yeah.
And a signed copy, yeah?
Of course.
Of course. All right.
Yeah.
We'll follow my social and we'll tell you about that giveaway in a future show. Thank you so much, Dr. Jenn. And you can find out more about Dr. Jenn on her website at Dr. Doctor Jenn, Jenn. We'll put the link in the show notes as well as her socials at Dr. Jenn Mann. And you're welcome to come back on the show and join us anytime. Thank you.
Thanks.
And I hope you all enjoyed episode 254 of Dates and Mates. Tell me your dating and relationship troubles so we can give you answers on a future show. And thank you to everyone who shared your questions with. We didn't even get through all the questions, but so many of you shared them on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter with me at Damona Hoffman. And I promise you, we will get to all of your questions on a future show. We want to help you to have a more successful love life in today's modern dating times. Next week, we have Jeff Cook, the CEO of the Meet Group, who has some of the most successful and long-running dating apps in the world. We will discuss the future of the dating app with him, so don't miss it. We'll see you next week, but until then, I wish you happy dating.